but leave the stump with its roots in the ground, and with a band of iron and bronze around it, and the tender grass of the field. Let him be drenched with dew from the sky, and share food with the wild animals for 7 periods of time. This is the interpretation, Your Majesty. This is the sentence of the Most High that has been passed against my lord the king. You will be driven away from people to live with the wild animals. You will feed on grass and be drenched with dew from the sky for 7 periods of time. The Most High is ruler over the kingdom. He gives it to anyone he wants. As for the command to leave the tree's stump with its roots, your kingdom will be restored to you as soon as you acknowledge that heaven rules. Therefore, may my advice seem good to you, my king. Separate yourself from your sins by doing what is right, and from your injustices by showing mercy to the needy. Perhaps there will be an extension of your prosperity. All this happened to King Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of 12 months, as he was walking on the roof of the royal palace in Babylon, the king exclaimed, "Is this not Babylon the Great, that I have built by my vast power to be a royal residence and to display my majestic glory?" While the words were still in the king's mouth, a voice came from heaven. "King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is declared that the kingdom has departed from you. You will be driven away from people to live with the wild animals. You will feed on grass like cattle for 7 periods of time, until you acknowledge that the Most High is ruler over the kingdom of men. He gives it to anyone he wants." At that moment, the sentence against Nebuchadnezzar was executed. He was driven away from people. He ate grass like cattle, and his body was drenched with dew from the sky, until his hair grew like eagle's feathers and his nails like bird's claws. But at the end of those days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, looked up to heaven, and my sanity returned to me. Then I praised the Most High, and honored and glorified him who lives forever. For his dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are counted as nothing, and he does what he wants with the army of heaven and the inhabitants of the earth. There is no one who can hold back his hand or say to him, "What have you done?" At that time, my sanity returned to me, my majesty and splendor returned to me for the glory of my kingdom. My advisors and my nobles sought me out. I was reestablished over my kingdom. Even more greatness came to me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise, exalt, and glorify the King of heaven, because all his works are true, and his ways are just. He is able to humble those who walk in pride.
Could you introduce yourself to the viewers here at Nationwide Freedom Family?
Daniel, chapter 5. King Belshazzar held a great feast for 1,000 of his nobles and drank wine in their presence. Under the influence of the wine, Belshazzar gave orders to bring in the gold and silver vessels that his predecessor Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple in Jerusalem, so that the king and his nobles, wives, and concubines could drink from them. So they brought in the gold vessels that had been taken from the temple, the house of God in Jerusalem, and the king and his nobles, wives, and concubines drank from it. They drank the wine and praised their gods made of gold and silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. At that moment, the fingers of a man's hand appeared and began writing on the plaster of the king's palace wall next to the lampstand. As the king watched the hand that was writing, his face turned pale, and his thoughts so terrified him that his hip joints shook and his knees knocked together. The king called out to bring in the mediums, Chaldeans, and astrologers. He said to these wise men of Babylon, "Whoever gives me its interpretation will be clothed in purple, have a gold chain around his neck, and have the third highest position in the kingdom." So all the king's wise men came in, but none could read the inscription or make its interpretation known to him. Then King Belshazzar became even more terrified. His face turned pale, and his nobles were bewildered. Because of the outcry of the king and his nobles, the queen came to the banquet hall. "May the king live forever," she said. "Don't let your thoughts terrify you or your face be pale. There is a man in your kingdom who has the spirit of the holy gods in him. In the days of your predecessor, he was found to have insight, intelligence, and wisdom like the wisdom of the gods. Your predecessor, King Nebuchadnezzar, appointed him chief of the diviners, mediums, Chaldeans, and astrologers. Your own predecessor, the king, did this because Daniel, the one the king named Belteshazzar, was found to have an extraordinary spirit, knowledge, and perception, and the ability to interpret dreams, explain riddles, and solve problems. Therefore, summon Daniel, and he will give the interpretation. Then Daniel was brought before the king. The king said to him, "Are you Daniel, one of the Judean exiles that my predecessor, the king, brought from Judah? I've heard that you have the spirit of the gods in you, and that you have insight, intelligence, and extraordinary wisdom." Now the wise men and mediums were brought before me to read this inscription and make its interpretation known to me, but they could not give its interpretation. However, I have heard about you that you can give interpretations and solve problems. Therefore, if you can read this inscription and give me its interpretation, you will be clothed in purple, have a gold chain around your neck, and have the third highest position in the kingdom. Then Daniel answered the king, "You may keep your gifts and give your rewards to someone else. However, I will read the inscription for the king and make the interpretation known to you. Your Majesty, the Most High God gave sovereignty, greatness, glory, and majesty to your predecessors. Because of the greatness he gave him, all peoples, nations, and languages were terrified and fearful of him. He killed anyone he wanted and kept alive anyone he wanted. He exalted anyone he wanted and humbled anyone he wanted. But when his heart was exalted and his spirit became arrogant, he was deposed from his royal throne and his glory was taken from him. He was driven away from people. His mind was like an animal's. He lived with the wild donkeys. He was fed grass like cattle, and his body was drenched with dew from the sky, until he acknowledged that the Most High God is ruler over the kingdom of men and sets anyone he wants over it. But you, his successor Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, even though you knew all this. Instead, you have exalted yourself against the Lord of heaven. The vessels from his house were brought to you, and as you and your nobles, wives, and concubines drank from them, you praised the gods made of silver and gold, bronze, iron, wood, and stone, which do not see or hear or understand. But you have not glorified the God who holds your life breath in his hand, and who controls the whole course of your life. Therefore, he sent the hand, and this writing was inscribed. This was the writing that was inscribed. Memet, Tekel, Parsi. This is the interpretation of the message. Memet means that God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. Tekel means that you have been weighed in the balance and found deficient. Perez means that your kingdom has been divided, given to the Medes and Persians. Then Belshazzar gave an order, and they clothed Daniel in purple, placed a gold chain around his neck, that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. That very night Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, was killed, and Darius the Mede received the kingdom at the age of 62.
We can disagree here on common ground.
Daniel,
We don't hate each other. We don't beat each other.
chapter 6.
The time when we're going to have a fight, we're going to fight.
Darius decided to appoint 120 satraps of the kingdom, stationed throughout the realm, and over them 3 administrators, including Daniel. These satraps would be accountable to them, so that the king would not be defrauded. Daniel distinguished himself above the administrators and satraps because he had an extraordinary spirit. So the king planned to set him over the whole realm. The administrators and satraps, therefore, kept trying to find a charge against Daniel regarding the kingdom, but they could find no charge or corruption, for he was trustworthy. No negligence or corruption was found in him. Then these men said, "We will never find any charge against this man, unless we find something against him concerning the law of his God." All the administrators, prefects, satraps, and governors agreed
nasıl telefon?
The king should establish an ordinance of enforcing that for 30 days, any god or man except the king will be thrown into the lion's den. Therefore, and sign the document as a law of the Medes and Persians. It is irrevocable and cannot be changed. So King Darius signed the document. Daniel learned that the document had been signed. He went into his house. The window in its upper room opened toward Jerusalem. 3 times a day, he got down on his knees, prayed, and gave thanks to his God, just as he had done before. Then these men went as a group and found Daniel petitioning and imploring his God. So they approached the king and asked about his edict. Didn't you send an edict that for 30 days any man who petitions any god or man except you, the king, will be thrown into the lion's den? The king answered, as a law of the Medes and Persians, the order stands and is irrevocable. Then they replied to the king, Daniel, one of the Judean exiles, has ignored you, the king, and the edict you signed, for he prays 3 times a day. As soon as the king heard this, he was very displeased. He set his mind on rescuing Daniel and made every effort until sundown to deliver him. Then these men went to the king and said to him, you as king know it is a law of the Medes and Persians that no edict or ordinance the king establishes can be changed. So the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the lion's den. The king said to Daniel, may your God, whom you serve continually, rescue you. A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den. The king sealed it with his own signet ring and with the signet rings of his nobles, so that nothing in regard to Daniel could be changed. Then the king went to his palace and spent the night fasting. No diversions were brought to him. He could not sleep. At dawn, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. When he reached the den, he cried out in anguish to Daniel. Daniel, servant of the living God, the king said, has your God whom you serve continually been able to rescue you from the lions? Then Daniel spoke with the king. May the king live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths. They haven't hurt me, for I was found innocent before him. Also, I have not committed a crime against you, my king. The king was overjoyed and gave orders to take Daniel out of the den. So Daniel was taken out of the den, uninjured, for he trusted in his God. The king then gave the command, and those men who had maliciously accused Daniel were brought and thrown into the lion's den. They, their children, and their wives. They had not reached the bottom of the den before the lions overpowered them and crushed all their bones. Then King Darius wrote to those of every people, nation, and language who live in all the earth, may your prosperity abound. I issue a decree that in all my royal dominion, people must tremble in fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, and he endures forever. His kingdom will never be destroyed, and his dominion has no end. He rescues and delivers. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth, for he has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. So Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. Daniel, chapter 7. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream with visions in his mind. He was lying in his bed. He wrote down the dream. Here is the summary of his account. Daniel said, in my vision at night I was watching, and suddenly the 4 winds of heaven stirred up the great sea. 4 huge beasts came up from the sea, each different from the others. The first was like a lion, but had eagle's wings. I continued watching until its wings were torn off. It was lifted up from the ground, set on its feet like a man, and given a human mind. Suddenly another beast appeared, a second one that looked like a bear. It was raised up on one side, with 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. It was told, get up, gorge yourself on flesh. While I was watching, another beast appeared. It was like a leopard with 4 wings of a bird on its back. It had 4 heads and was given authority to rule. While I was watching in the night visions, a 4th beast appeared, frightening and dreadful and incredibly strong with large iron teeth. It devoured and crushed and it trampled with its feet whatever was left. It was different from all the beasts before it, and it had 10 horns. While I was considering the horns, suddenly another horn, a little one, came up among them. Three of the first horns were uprooted before it. There were eyes in this one like a man's, and it had a mouth that spoke arrogantly. As I kept watching, thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was white like snow, and the hair of his head like whitish wool. His throne was flaming fire. Its wheels were blazing fire. A river of fire was flowing coming out from his presence. Thousands upon thousands served him. 10,000 times 10 arrogant words the horn was speaking. As I continued watching, the beast was killed and its body destroyed and given over to the burning fire. As for the rest of the beasts, their authority to rule was removed, but an extension of life was granted to them for a certain period of time. I continued watching in the night visions, and I saw one like a son of man coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was escorted before him. He was given authority to rule and glory and a kingdom, so that those of every people, nation, and language should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will not be destroyed. As for me, Daniel, my spirit was deeply distressed within me, and the visions in my mind terrified me. I approached one of my prophets and asked him the true meaning of all this. So he let me know the interpretation of these things. These huge beasts, 4 in number, are 4 kings who will rise from the earth. But the holy ones of the Most High will receive the kingdom and possess it forever. Yes, forever and ever. Then I wanted to know the true meaning of the 4th beast, the one different from all the others, extremely terrifying, with iron teeth and bronze claws, devouring, crushing, and trampling with its feet whatever was left. I also wanted to know about the 10 horns on its head, and about the other horn that came up, before which 3 fell. The horn that had eyes and a mouth that spoke arrogantly, and that was more visible than the others. As I was watching, this one waged war against the holy ones and was prevailing over them, until the Ancient of Days arrived, and a judgment was given in favor of the holy ones of the Most High. For the time had come.
Lütfen
The holy
paylaşın,
ones
her
took
yerde
possession
paylaşın.
of the kingdom.
İzleyici sayına
This is
kadar.
what he said. The 4th beast will be a 4th kingdom on the earth, different from all the other kingdoms. It will devour the whole earth, trample it down, and crush it. The 10 horns are 10 kings who will rise from this kingdom. Another different from the previous ones will rise after them and subdue 3 kings. He will speak words against the Most High and oppress the holy ones of the Most High. He will intend to change religious festivals and laws, and the holy ones will be handed over to him for a time, times, and half a time. But the court will convene. His dominion will be taken away.
Bence bunu biz bu tarafa koyak da.
The kingdom, dominion, and greatness of the kingdoms under all of heaven will be given to the people, the holy ones of the Most High. His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, and all rulers will serve and obey him. This is the end of the interpretation. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts terrified me greatly, and my face turned pale, but I kept the matter to myself. Daniel, chapter 8. In the 3rd year of King Belshazzar's reign, a vision appeared to me, Daniel, after the one that had appeared to me earlier. I saw the vision, and as I watched, I was in the fortress city of Susa, in the province of Elam. I saw in the vision that I was beside the Ulai Canal. I looked up, and there was a ram standing beside the canal. He had 2 horns. The 2 horns were long, but one was longer than the other, and the longer one came up last. I saw the ram charging to the west, the north, and the south. No animal could stand against him, and there was no rescue from his power. He did whatever he wanted and became great. As I was observing, a male goat appeared, coming from the west across the surface of the entire earth without touching the ground. The goat had a conspicuous horn between his eyes. He came toward the two-horned ram I had seen standing beside the canal and rushed at him with savage fury. I saw him approaching the ram, and infuriated with him, he struck the ram, shattering his two horns, and the ram was not strong enough to stand against him. The goat threw him to the ground and trampled him, and there was no one to rescue the ram from his power. Then the male goat became very great, but when he became powerful, the large horn was shattered. Four conspicuous horns came up in its place, pointing toward the four winds of heaven. From one of them, a little horn emerged and grew extensively toward the south and the east, and toward the beautiful land. It grew as high as the heavenly host, made some of the stars and some of the host fall to the earth, and trampled them. It made itself great, even up to the prince of the host. It removed his daily sacrifice and overthrew the place of the sanctuary. Because of rebellion, a host together with the daily sacrifice will be given over. The horn will throw truth to the ground and will be successful in whatever it does. Then I heard a holy one speak, and another holy one said to the speaker, "How long will the events of this vision last? The daily sacrifice, the rebellion that makes desolate, and the giving over of the sanctuary and of the host to be trampled?" He said to me, "For 2,300 evenings and mornings, then the sanctuary will be restored." While I, Daniel, was watching the vision, trying to understand it, there stood before me someone who appeared to be a man. I heard a human voice calling from the middle of the Umayyad, "Gabriel, explain the vision to this man." So he approached where I was standing. When he came near, I was terrified and fell face down. "Son of man," he said to me, "understand that the vision refers to the time of the end." While he was speaking to me, I fell into a deep sleep with my face to the ground. Then he touched me, made me stand up, and said, "I am here to tell you what will happen at the conclusion of the time of wrath, because it refers to the appointed time of the end. The two-horned ram that you saw represents the kings of Media and Persia. The shaggy goat represents the king of Greece, and the large horn between his eyes represents the first king. The four horns that took the place of the shattered horn represent four kingdoms. They will rise from that nation, but without its power. Near the end of their kingdoms, when the rebels have reached the full measure of their sin, an insolent king, skilled in intrigue, will come to the throne.
Birazdan bəyanat da oxunulacaq. Hələ ki bir toplam elədik, yoxladı. Canlı biraz yoxlamış elədik. Yazılış ki, səs yaxşıdır. Bütün Azərbaycan xalqını salamlayıram. Hər kəsə yeni ilində uğurlar arzulayıram. Evet, səs Hər kəsin yeni ilində, yeni ilin uğurlu olmasını arzulayıram. Düzgünləri bura təşkilatlı olaraq olmuşdur. Burada fərqli insanlar var. Ən əsas fikirləri Azərbaycanın demokratiyasıdır. Aksiyanın məqsədi siyasi məhbuslara azadlıqdır. Azad toplaşmanın təmin olmasıdır. Bu günləri bildiyiniz kimi gəlmir. Bu səs qoymuyor. Biraz yaxınlaşır. Bu günləri bizim Azərbaycanda demək olar ki, regionda nömrə 1 siyahısına görə siyasi məhbuslarımız var və bildiyiniz kimi yeni il qarşısı Bəxtiyar Hacıyevlər, hamının sevimlisi Dəmir adam Tofiq Yağmurlu həbs olundu. Onun məqsədi sadəcə aksiyaya gəlib Bəxtiyar Hacıyevə azadlıq tələb eləməsi idi. Bu da konstitusiyada qeyd olunmuş bir maddədir. İnsan heç bir cinayət törətmədən, heç bir qanun pozuntusu yaratmadan sadəcə gəlib yaxınlaşdığında da mən çox düşünürəm ki, bunları bizim üçün düşünürlər. Biraz diqqətli olun, bizi təxribatlar bilərlər. Gördünüz. Yanıma belə şeylər baş verir. Təxribatçılar hər yerdə var, gördüyünüz kimi. Bizim məqsədimiz bilirlər.
Because of the disloyalty they have shown towards you, Our public shame belongs to us, our kings, our leaders, and our fathers, because we have sinned against you. Compassion and forgiveness belong to the Lord our
Bunların
God,
timsalında
for
Hamd
we have rebelled
Niyamettin,
against him. It
Agil
has not obeyed the
Hümbətov,
voice of the Lord our God,
bütün dostlar kimler varsa,
He set before us through his servants.
qardaş deyəsən, ümumiyyətlə burada səs-küy yaradırlar. Bilmirəm, bu təsadüfdür, ya quramadır, adətən belə şeylər olmur. Çox güman ki,
Ses imkan vermeyecek. Demokratiya belədir.
demokratiya vaxt belədir. Gördüyümüz kimi biz çıxış elədiyimiz yerdə başqa adamla başqa protest eləmək istəyir. Gəlib Biden'e söylər açıq. Onu təhdid edirlər, təhqir edirlər hətta. Söyüş də söylür.
Bizdə olsaydı sabahındaydı.
Bizdə olsaydı bəli. Bir iki gəlməsən də deməliyim. Biraz vaxtı aparacağıq, çalışacağıq bu səslər zaten görüşsün. Gözləyəcəyik. Ondan sonra bizim bəyanatımız olacaq və səs-küzləndirici ilə öz tələblərimizi tələb edəcəyik. İngilislər ətraflı.
Lord, in keeping with all your righteousness, may your anger and wrath turn away from your city, Jerusalem, your holy mountain. For because of our sins and the iniquities of our fathers, Jerusalem and your people have become an object of ridicule to all those around us. Therefore, hear the prayer and the petitions of your servant. Show your favor to your desolate sanctuary for the Lord's sake. Listen, my God, and hear. Open your eyes and see our desolations in the city called by your name. For we are not presenting our petitions before you based on our righteousness, but based on your abundant compassion. Lord, hear. Lord, forgive. Lord, listen and act. My God, for your own sake, do not delay, because your city and your people are called by your name. While I was speaking, praying, confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, presenting my petition before Yahweh my God, concerning the holy mountain of my God. While I was praying, Gabriel, the man I had seen in the first vision, came to me in my extreme weariness at the time of the evening offering. He gave me this explanation. Daniel, I've come now to give you understanding. At the beginning of your petitions and answer them, I have come to give it, for you are treasured by God. So consider the message and understand the vision. 70 weeks are decreed about your people and your holy city, to bring the rebellion to an end, to put a stop to sin, to wipe away iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy place. Know and understand this, from the issuing of the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. It will be rebuilt with a plaza and a moat, but in difficult times. After those 62 weeks, the Messiah will be cut off and will have nothing. The people of the coming Prince will destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end will come with a flood, and until the end there will be war, desolation. He will make a firm covenant with many for 1 week, but in the middle of the week he will put aside sacrifice and offering. And the abomination of desolation,
if you want to survive
until the decree
in my world, oh man,
poured out on the desolate.
we're all here to take you out. All our families.
Daniel, chapter 10. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a message was revealed to Daniel, who was named Belteshazzar. The message was true and was about a great conflict. He understood the message and had understanding of the vision. In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning for 3 full weeks. I didn't eat any rich food, no neither wine entered my mouth. I didn't put any oil on my head until the 3 weeks were over. On the 24th day of the 1st month, I was standing on the bank of the great river, the Tigris. I looked up, and there was a man dressed in linen, with a belt of gold from Euphrates around his waist. His body was like topaz, his face like the brilliance of lightning, his eyes like flaming torches, his arms and feet like the gleam of polished bronze, and the sound of his words like the sound of a multitude. Only I, Daniel, saw the vision. The men who were with me did not see it. But a great terror fell on them, and they ran and hid. I was left alone looking at this great vision. No strength was left in me. My face grew deathly pale, and I was powerless. I heard the words he said. When I heard them, I fell into a deep sleep with my face to the ground. Suddenly, a hand touched me and raised me to my hands and knees. He said to me, Daniel, you are a man treasured by God. Understand the words that I'm saying to you. Stand on your feet, for I have not been sent to you. After he said this,
bir neçə intervyu aldılar, bilməm onu çəkmişlər yoxsa yox, amma şəkillərimiz var. Qardaşın özünə intervyu aldı və hiss edirəm ki, burada Bidenlə demokrasiyanın, azadlığın nəsə bir qarıb qarışmamalarını çalışırlar, təbliğ eləsinlər. Bilməm, bunu bizim efirə görə edirlər, ya təsadüfdür, amma mən həyatda təsadüflərə inanmıram. Düşünürəm ki, bəli, mən çox əminəm buna ki, yəni belə təsadüf deyil. Adətən bura gələndə bir dənə, iki dənə aksiya olur. Qrup şəklində hamı aksiyasını görür, çıxır gedir. O oğlan bəli, səs düzəndirici ilə həqiqi bir aksiyadır. Biz də ona xahiş edəcəyik, 5-10 dəqiqə vaxtını alsın. Amma bu qardaşlar, arxamızda olan insanlar çox təhribatçı aksiyalar. Hətta arxamızda bizim gəldilər, Allahu Ekber qışqırdılar. Gördünüz yoxsa yox. Mən də eyni anda yaxınlaşdım polisə, həbər elədim ki, o adam bizdən deyil və hər hansı bir bu məsələ ilə bağlı bir təxribat olarsa, biləsiniz ki, o lozunqların bizə aidiyyatı yoxdur. Biz bura heç bir dini, irqi və ya başqa bir məsələyə görə gəlməmişik və ümumiyyətlə bizim baxış tərəfimiz insanlara eynidir, rəngindən və ya irqindən asılı olmayaraq.
Sürprizimizi eləyəkmi?
Eləyəcək, indi bir dənə səsini xahiş edəcək, alacaq.
İmkan vermir.
Səsi toplayır o. İndi bəli, çıxış eləyəcəyik, dostlar sözlərini deyəcək, ondan sonra bir-iki dənə bəyanatımız oxuyacaq və ondan da sonra bir-iki dənə ingiliscə lozunqlarımızı səsləndirəcəyik, Bidenlə istəklərimizi tələb edəcəyik, azadlıq, demokrat olaraq. Bu qədər sağ olun, ərəlik.
Three more kings will arise in Persia, and the fourth will be far richer than the others. By the power he gains through his riches, he will stir up everyone against the kingdom of Greece. Then a warrior king will arise. He will rule a vast realm and do whatever he wants. But as soon as he is established, his kingdom will be broken up and divided to the four winds of heaven. But not to his descendants. It will not be the same kingdom that he ruled, because his kingdom will be uprooted and will go to others besides them. The king of the south will grow powerful, but one of his commanders will grow more powerful, will rule a kingdom greater than his. After some years they will form an alliance. Daughter of the king of the south will go to the king of the north to seal the agreement. She will not retain power, and his strength will not endure. She will be given up together with her entourage, her father,
Fuck the USA!
During those times,
Fuck the USA!
Of the South, one from her family will rise up, come against the army, and enter the fortress of the king of the north. He will take action against them and triumph. He will take even their captive to Egypt.
Təxribatdır.
Precious articles of silver and gold. For some years he will stay away from the king of the north, who will enter the kingdom of the king of the south and then return to his own land.
Bunu yazırıq sırf Azərbaycan səfirinin ayağını alacaq. Qəbul etsinlər. Bu araşdırılacaq, belə qalmayacaq. Amma problem deyil. Bizim səs gücləndiricimiz var. Səsini alacaq, hamıdan da bəlkə qışqıracaq. Bu adam niyə burada məstəyanı mənə maraqlanır, amma çox əminəm ki, bu qəsdən göndəriblər ki, mən yaxınlaşırım, söz deyim, təxribat yaransın, dava düşsün. Biz də onu eləməyəcəyik, qətiyyən heç kimin heç ünsiyyətə girməyəcəyik, heç kimin heç dostlara da deyəcəyik. Biz ancaq aksiyamızı davam edəcəyik. Freedom!
Freedom for Tawfiq Yaqublu! Freedom for Tawfiq Yaqublu! İlham Aliyev dictator! İlham Aliyev dictator!
İlham Aliyev diktatör!
İlham Aliyev dictator! Freedom for Tawfiq Yaqublu! Freedom for Tawfiq Yaqublu!
one can oppose him. In the beautiful land, with total destruction in his hand, he will resolve to come with the force of his kingdom and will reach an agreement with him. He will give him a daughter in marriage to destroy him, but she will not stand with him or support him. Then he will turn his attention to the coasts and islands and capture many. But a commander will put an end to his taunting. Instead, he will turn his taunts against him. He will turn his attention back to the fortresses of his own land. He will stumble, fall, and be no more. In his place, one will arise who will send out a tax collector for the glory of the kingdom. But within a few days, he will be shattered, though not in anger or in battle. In his place, a despised person will arise. Royal honors will not be given to him, but he will come during the kingdom by intrigue. A flood of forces will be swept away before him. They will be shattered, as well as the covenant prince. After an alliance is made with him, he will act deceitfully. He will rise to power with a small nation. During a time of peace, he will come into the richest parts of the province and do what his fathers and predecessors never did. He will lavish, plunder, loot, and wealth on his followers, and he will make plans against fortified cities, only for a time. With a large army, he will spread his power and his courage against the king of the king of the south, prepare for battle with an large and powerful army. But he will not succeed because plots will be made against him. Those who eat his provisions will destroy him. His army will be swept away and many will fall slain.
Very bad regime. Very, very bad. Help Azerbaijan.
But to no avail. For still the end will come at the appointed time. The
Freedom
king of
for
the north will
Tawfiq
return to his land with great wealth, but his heart will be set against the holy covenant.
In Azerbaijan, very, very bad regime. Very bad regime.
At the appointed time, he will come again to the south, but this time will not be like the first. Ships of Kittim will come against him, being intimidated. He will withdraw. Then he will rage against the holy covenant and take action. On his return, he will favor those who abandon the holy covenant. His forces will rise up and desecrate the temple fortress. They will abolish the daily sacrifice and set up the abomination of desolation. With flattery, he will corrupt those who wickedly tread the covenant. But the people who know their God will be strong and take action. Those who are wise among the people will give understanding to many, yet they will die by sword and flame and be captured and plundered for a time. When defeated, they will be helped by some, but many others will join them in suicide. Some of the wise will fall so that they may be refined, purified, and cleansed until the time of the end, for it will still come at the appointed time. Then the king will do whatever he wants. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god. He will say outrageous things against the God of gods. He will be successful until the time of wrath is completed, because what is from decreed will be accomplished. He will not show regard for the gods of his fathers, the God longed for by women, or for any other god.
Justice for Azerbaijan! Justice for Azerbaijan!
He will honor a God of fortresses, a God his fathers did not know, with gold, silver,
No
precious
regime
stones, and
criminal!
riches.
No regime criminal! No regime criminal!
He will greatly honor
No
those who
regime
acknowledge
criminal!
him, making
No
them leaders
regime
of men
criminal!
and distributing land as a reward. At the time of the end, the king of the south will engage him in battle. But the king of the north will storm against him, chariots, horsemen, and
Geroyam
militias.
Slava!
He will invade countries and streets.
Slava Ukraine!
He will also invade the beautiful land, and many will fall. But these will escape from his power. Edom, Moab, and the
Justice for Azerbaijan!
He will expose himself against the countries, not even the land of Egypt will escape. He will get control over the hidden treasures of gold and silver, over all the riches of Egypt. The Libyans and
Justice for Azerbaijan!
Justice for Azerbaijan! Reports from the
No
east
criminal regime!
terrify him, and he will go out with great fury to annihilate and completely destroy many. He will pitch his royal tents between the sea and the beautiful holy mountain. He will meet his end with no one to help him. Daniel, chapter 12. At that time, Michael, the great prince who stands watch over your people, will rise up. There will be a time
Freedom
of
for
distress,
political
such as never
prisoners.
happened since nations came into being until that time. But at that time, all your people
Freedom for
found
traffic
written in the
only.
book will
Freedom
escape.
for traffic
Many of those who
only.
sleep in
No
the dust of
criminal
the earth
regime.
will awake,
No criminal
some to
regime.
eternal
No
life,
criminal
and
regime.
some to shame and eternal contempt.
Slava Ukraine!
Like the bright expanse of
Slava
heaven,
Geraam!
and those who lead many to righteousness, like the stars
Thanks,
forever and
Ukraine!
ever. But you, Daniel, keep these words secret and seal the book until the time of the end. Many will roam about, and knowledge will increase. Then I, Daniel, looked, and two others were standing there, one on this bank of the river, and one on the other. One of them said to the man dressed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, "How long until the end of these extraordinary things?" Then I heard the man dressed in linen, who was above the waters of the river. He raised both his hands toward heaven, and swore by him who lives eternally, that it would be for a time, times, and half a time. When the power of the holy people is shattered, all these things will be completed. I heard but did not understand. So I asked, "My Lord, what will be the outcome of these things?" The Holman Christians
Biden, dear Biden, please give attention to Azerbaijan. We tired being a slave. Please give attention to Azerbaijan.
You can put police in this country.
completed. I heard but did not understand. So I asked, "My Lord, what will be the outcome of these things?" He said, "Go on your way, Daniel, for the words are secret and sealed until the time of the end. Many will be
Külfet hakimiyetine
purified,
son.
cleansed, and
Külfet
refined.
hakimiyetine
The wicked
son.
will act
Aile
wickedly.
hakimiyetine
None of
son.
the wicked will
Aile
understand.
hakimiyetine son.
The wise will
Diktatöre
understand.
yok.
Diktatöre
The
yok.
daily sacrifices
Siyasi
abolished.
məhbusları azadlıq.
Siyasi
Abomination of
məhbuslara
desolations.
azadlık.
Freedom political prisoners.
Freedom for political prisoners.
No dictatorship in Azerbaijan.
No dictatorship in Azerbaijan.
As for you,
Stop
go on your way
Aliyev.
to the end.
Stop
You
Aliyev.
will rest, then rise to your
Stop
destiny.
Pashayev.
End of the
Pashayev.
days.
We tired being slave.
We can't be slave.
No dictatorship in Azerbaijan.
No dictatorship in Azerbaijan.
Give attention to Azerbaijan.
Give attention to Azerbaijan.
Mükemmel, mükemmel. Eşk olsun. Eşk olsun Tolstoy Abubu'ya ve bütün siyasi məhbusları azadlıq tələb edilir. Freedom for all political prisoners. Biden, please give attention. Please.
Sərhədləri bağlama, xalqı əsir saxlama. Sərhədləri bağlama, xalqı əsir saxlama. Sərhədləri bağlama, xalqı əsir saxlama. Sərhədləri bağlama, xalqı əsir saxlama. Rədd olsun İlham Əliyev, rədd olsun diktatura. Siyasət hakimiyyətindən son. Rədd olsun İlham Əliyev. Diktator hakimiyyətindən son. Dədən getdi sən necə? Dədən getdi sən necə?
Dədən getdi sən necə?
Dədən getdi sən necə?
Dədən getdi sən necə? Niyə tutmurlar? Maraqsız olur. Ay sağ ol.
All right, that was Pakistan. This is the national anthem of Spain right here.
Birinci adımızdan da sen oku. Arkasında İngiliz. Bana koy. 8. Bura bir şey koysaydık əla olardı. Günün qabağında. Belə. Sen de gelin arkaya da. Hamı arkaya gelsin. Beyanatı okuyalım.
Şöyle bak bunu kölde tutmak istemsen.
Yok problem olmaz. Kardeşe diğeri tutarız.
Ha evet.
Ben yakın olsun.
Aslında yaptık dostum.
Yok əladır. Biz gördük. Şu əladır. Davay.
Never stop working, never stop.
Sen de gel. Saklama gel.
Yaxşı düşürüp o sən görürsən.
Yox, mənim gözümə düşür, yaxşı görür.
Oxuyor musun?
Kodu göster.
Biraz saçma.
Lütfen sorun.
Demokrat. Yəni də sağ olsun qoşdu himnimizi.
Azadlıq.
Bunu çözün.
Hosea, chapter 1. The word of the Lord that came to Hosea, son of Beeri, during the reigns of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, and of Jeroboam, son of Joash, king of Israel. When the Lord first appeared to Hosea, he said, "Go and marry a promiscuous woman, for the land is by abandoning the Lord." So he went and married Gomer, daughter of Diblaim, and she conceived and bore him a son. Then the Lord said, "Name him Jezreel, for in a little while I will bring the bloodshed of Jezreel on the house of Jacob."
Bugünkü aksiyamızla bağlı bəyanatımızı oxuyuruq. Bugünkü aksiya ilə bağlı bəyanatımızı oxuyuruq. Azərbaycanda Əliyev rejimi siyasi həbslərə rəvac verir. Ümumiyyətlə, ata-oğul Əliyevlərin zamanında elə bir il olmayıb ki, ölkədə siyasi müxalifət təmsilçiləri şərlənərək həbs edilməsinlər. İlham Əliyevin 20 ildir davam edən prezidentliyi dövründə isə siyasi məhbusların sayı heç zaman 100 nəfərdən aşağı olmayıb. Buna görə də Azərbaycan Avropada siyasi məhbus sayına görə uzun illərdəki lider ölkə olaraq qalır. Ötən ilin son ayında Azərbaycanda siyasi məhbusların siyasında daha 2 nəfər əlavə edilib. Bunlar İctimai fəal Bəxtiyar Hacıyev və müxalifətin tanınmış liderlərinə olan Tofiq Yaqubudur. Biz Amerika təmsilçiləri olaraq Vaşinqtonda bu etiraz aksiyasını keçirərək Azərbaycan hakimiyyətindən tələb edirik. 1. Ölkədə siyasi səbəblərlə həbs təcrübələrinə bir dəfəlik son qoyulsun. 2. Azərbaycanda siyasi məhbuslar dərhal azadlığa buraxılsın. Beynəlxalq təşkilatlardan tələbimiz Azərbaycanda siyasi həbslər məsələsini, eləcə də həbsxanalarda və istintaq təcridxanalarda işgəncə praktikasını daim diqqətdə saxlamaqdır. Diktator öz ölkəsində azadlıqlara və insan haqlarına qarşı törətdiyi cinayətlərə görə bütün dünyada sorğulanmalıdır. Külfət hakimiyyətinə son! Külfət hakimiyyətinə son! Külfət hakimiyyətinə son!
Külfət hakimiyyətinə son!
Külfət hakimiyyətinə son!
Külfət hakimiyyətinə son!
Çalışatı İngiliscədə və ya oxuyan hər halda eşidənlərimiz qeydiyyatı üçün. In Azerbaijan, the Aliyev regime encouraged political arrests. In general, during the time of father and son Aliyev, there was not a year when representatives of the political opposition in the country were not defamed and arrested. During Ilham Aliyev's 20-year presidency, the number of political prisoners was never less than 100 people. Therefore, Azerbaijan has been the leader in the number of political prisoners in Europe for many, many years. In the last months of last year, 2 more people were added to the list of political prisoners in Azerbaijan. There as social activists Bəxtiyar Hacıyev and Tofiq Yaqublu, one of the well-known leaders of opposition. We are, as a representatives of ANT America, hold this protest action in Washington and demand from Azerbaijani authorities to put an end to the practice of imprisonment for political reasons in the country once and for all. Political prisoners in Azerbaijan should be released immediately. Our demand from international organizations is to constantly keep in mind the issue of political arrests in Azerbaijan, as well as practice of torture in prisons and detention centers. The dictator should be questioned all over the world for his crimes against freedom and human rights in his country. And America, January 5th, 23. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Freedom for Azerbaijan!
Freedom for Azerbaijan!
Stop dictatorship!
Stop dictatorship!
No Kremlin regime in Azerbaijan!
No Kremlin regime in Azerbaijan!
We don't want Putin of Putin! We don't want Putin of Putin!
We don't want Putin of Putin!
We're tired being slaves!
No political prisoners. Stop Aliyev. Stop Pashayev. Freedom for Azerbaijan. Justice for Azerbaijan. Stop Aliyev. Azadlık. Azadlık. Külfet hakimiyetine son. Aile hakimiyetine son. Diktatörlüğe yok. Heyderizme yok. Stop dictatorship. Biden, please give attention. Biden, please give attention. Stop Azerbaijan dictatorship. Thank you so much. We love you. We support you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks for everybody. And you as well. Respect.
Love to a woman who is loved by another man and is an adulteress. Just as the Lord loves the Israelites, though they turn to other gods.
Əziz izləyicilər, çox sağ olun. Sizə də belə səs gücləndirici ilə təşəkkür edəcəm. Çünki musiqinin səsini almayıblar. Xahiş edəsək də sifariş yerinə getirilir. Hamınızı izlədiyiniz üçün çox sağ ol deyirəm. Ekrana yaxın qalın.
Sürprizimiz var.
Bizim bu səs gücləndiriciyə mane olduqları üçün bir fevral sürprizimiz var. Daha bir canlı yayım olacaq. İzləyin, kanal buranı bəyənin, paylaşın. Sağ olun.